Good afternoon.
Today is May 4th, 2017. My name is Helene Tischler. I'm here at the Newton City Hall Law Library with Dr. Gisela Morales-Barreto. Together we're participating in the Newton Talks Oral History Project that is being conducted with the Newton Free Library, Historic Newton, and the Newton Senior Center. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
And we're very eager to hear about your experiences. So we'd like to start to find out about where you're from, when you came here, why you left, how old you were, and so forth.
If I tell you how old I was then, you're going to figure out my age now. So thank you, to start for inviting me. I am very happy to do this because as I was telling, and I'm not doing this because I want to be in that cloud, when you send the whole digital, whatever you do.
Yes.
But because I think it's important after being in this city and in this country living for almost 38 years, that 100 years from now, the information is there and available for people to understand where we are today and what has transpired, at least in my 38 years here.
That's wonderful.
So thank you so much for the invitation. And I came in 1979, August 20th. I landed here in the middle of the night and had no clue where we were because I have traveled to the United States since I was 11 years old, but never came to Boston in those years, since 11 until 25 when I arrived. We planned the trip and we landed, believe it or not, in Boston downtown in what was and still is Avery Street, but at the time it was the red zone and we had no clue. The travel agent in Venezuela, in Caracas, had no clue. He looked it up in a book in those days, and he said, "Oh, there's a Central Hotel, and it seems to be good because you can walk around." Well, when we landed there at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, what happened was the cockroaches were walking on the top of the bed. So we stayed all night sitting on the edge, meeting my brother and my mother, who came to bring us. I came with my younger brother, and the cockroaches were, on the bed. Oh, I mean, it was a disaster. So at 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm looking at the yellow pages, in the room, and trying to find the hotel. So we ended up at the Elliott Hotel, which is on Commonwealth Avenue, and a safe haven, and clean and no insects, of any nature. But I distinctively remember sitting on the edge of the bed, watching the clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. I mean,
till you could get out of bed.
Yeah, and not even able to even take a shower, nothing, because it was like, oof.
So why did you leave Venezuela at that time?
Yes, thank you. I left because I had finished my degree in psychology 3 years before, in 1976, and I wanted to do a clinical program, and at the time there were no clinical masters or that kind of thing in Venezuela. It was more organizational psychology, that kind of studies. And I was going to leave the year after, but my grandmother, my mother's mother, who raised me at home, they lived with us, died. And so, my mother is an only child, and it was very difficult, so it was postponed for 3 years. And I happened to have my, when I finished in 76, that between 75 and 76, my clinical psychology professor had been here in Boston, and she recommended that I would come here because at the time, and it's still there, by the way, she had been an associate professor of this program at what was then Boston City Hospital. And it was called the Minority Training Program. It was a psychology program, hands-on, at City Hospital, where you learn everything and anything that you can imagine. And she recommended that I, would go there, that she was going to put a word out and blah, blah. So we landed. My brother had been accepted in Michigan to go to school there, but we made the first stop because it was August here.
Ah.
And we landed here, and I had no clue where I was going to study. I came without no application, nothing, because I was going to look around to see what was here that I, could do. And I landed first at BU to take some courses while figuring out, what I was going to do, and then was accepted in January of 78 to go to Boston College, which I want to make a point of this because it's very important that people understand how different the educational system is.
Right.
For me, I love Boston College, but it was a waste of time because I went into a clinical program, a master's program, but I sat there with people who had changed their minds, and they were English teachers or different, that had no clue, for instance, who Freud was. And it was like, so a few years later, I found out that I came really here with a master's already under my belt because of the European system in Venezuela, in the Latin American countries. And so I was doing a master's that didn't really provide anything new to me. But it was good. I had a master's from Boston College. And immediately after the master's, I went to this program at Boston City Hospital.
Okay. And how did you get to Newton? Through the Boston College?
No.
Experience?
I have a cousin, and he had a friend who happened to be dating this lady from Costa Rica, who I still are friends with. We adore the family very much. And he said, connect with Sylvia. And the next day when we moved to the Elliott Hotel, I called Sylvia. And Sylvia came. It was the first human being that really we could say hi to or whatever. And she came to the Elliott, and her family is also immigrant family here. And she came to the hotel, and the rest is history. We told her that we wanted to rent an apartment and whatever, and we went to Brook House, and they would not rent us an apartment because we were Latinos, and they had a very bad experience with Latinos. So out we went. And in those days, when you arrive in a new country, the different language, and you don't know what your rights are, what you are entitled to, or anything like that. So, we went to Longwood, to the Towers, and we rented an apartment there. But Sylvia said, I know this real estate person. Why don't we go with him? And blah, blah, blah. Sylvia is a very, she's a shaker and mover.
Right.
And
Good
so
thing.
we landed visiting with this real estate person who took us to Lime Road. And very interesting, Lime Road was a piece of land that had been under this gentleman. You could probably find out who he was. And he died. And so the family or whoever,
was the estate.
The estate, that's
Right,
the word.
right.
Thank you. They divided the land and made this street 40, Lime Road, and they were finishing all these homes. If you go there, all that street they were built in 1979. And so my mother decided to buy a house, and my brother stayed here, and that was our entering into Newton.
Okay. And that remind me of the year again.
1979.
Okay. And
Carter was in
and
the
you
process.
had trouble renting before that.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Absolutely. And because of that, my mother is a lawyer. She's a very well educated lady, and she couldn't believe the whole thing. And she said, we're not going. She called my father back in Venezuela, who didn't come at the time because he was a physician. And so they decided to buy this house on 43 Lime Road. 34 Lime Road. I'm sorry,
Okay.
34 Lime Road. And she said, we're not going to put you through this.
Right.
That somebody else is going to tell you that we cannot rent because we're Latinos.
Right. Your English is very good. Where did you learn it, and did you have difficulties when you got here?
I went to school in Venezuela. My parents were very I determined, I would say the word, that I was going to start learning English. We all, the three siblings, we were all going to start, learning English from, you know, not on day one, but very soon after. So I went to a bilingual school. The Here is called the Ursuline Academy in
Oh,
Dedham.
yes, yes.
The at home is the Medici Academy, and so I studied from 7 years old until I was, until I graduated from high school with the Ursuline nuns, and so I learned,
You had a good
English.
education. Was
Yes,
it still a difficult transition, though?
absolutely,
What
absolutely.
was the most difficult thing at the beginning? What did you find?
The most
Besides the cockroaches.
oh, oh that's a um, the most difficult thing was shortly after arriving here that it was not, the same. I was not, I, for the outside world, I was not the same person that I was back home. I learned very, very soon after that I was a minority here, that I was different, and that I had, in Venezuela I'm white and I'm, one of the bunch, I suppose. But here, when I went to school, when I went to work, do my internship at city hospital, I had to switch, my brain and say, well, when you leave home, you're a minority, and when you come home, you switch again and you're yourself. So that was tough. That was
Mhm.
very difficult to get adjusted and be reminded, that that's, who you were here. The experience of coming here as a tourist, and we traveled here very much, since I was 11 years old. Came to the States. Very different when you're a tourist and when you come to stay and live. The good news, or not the good news, but the thing for us was that we were not supposed to stay here, but 2 years. I was, when I went, I had two jobs back home,
Mm.
and when I went to tell them that I was coming, I was not forced, but very forcefully trying to be convinced that I should not do that, that I should stay, and blah blah blah, And one of them said, "Okay, you go 2 years, and you come back, and we'll keep the job for you." So, I said to them then that I was going to come because I really needed to know. If I didn't do it, it was going to be always in my mind. Can I do this? Can I really live? And the interesting part is that in Latin American culture, contrary to what the government here, says, we do not leave. We're, here people move from Arkansas to Minnesota and
Yes,
they go to
yes.
Florida.
Right.
We're not like that. You were born and we live and we die in the same place. And even if you don't get married, more so you stay with your parents and you don't move.
Hmm.
And that's the culture.
Right.
So I coming here, you know, and getting into that process, but knowing that I could go back, that I was going back, made it a little bit easier because
Give
I
you a
knew
comfort
that I
level.
was always, um, I was being waited for back home.
Yes. You had
And my
sort of
father
that.
made it very clear too. If it doesn't work, you come back.
All right. Did he come over too eventually?
Well, we came here. I came here in '79. My parents moved here in 1999. My father decided to retire, and they came here in November 30th of 1999. And 5 months later, he had a stroke.
Mm.
So
Mm.
that process, took a while, and he died in 2003. And he's buried next door
Uh,
at Newton
yeah.
Cemetery.
I'm sorry, that's difficult.
Oh,
You mentioned some cultural differences,
Mhm.
living with your parents. Here we move around a lot.
Yes.
Did anything else strike you then or even now about the differences?
Oh, every day it continues to strike
Anything
me.
really just stand
Yes,
out for you? Or
absolutely. Over time and from the very beginning, the value or not here of the elderly.
Mm.
The how disposable in some ways elders are here. not disposable, that's probably a very strong word, but for us is, the respect and the acknowledgement of the wisdom that
Yes.
they have. There's no such a thing as a nursing home
In
in
Venezuela.
Venezuela or in Latin America.
Uh-huh.
That's for sure.
That's very
They
distinctive.
stay home, you take care of them, and so, for the last 5 years, I quitted my job and I've been taking care of my mother
Right.
because she's not going to a nursing home.
No, no, I get it.
So that's one big, aspect. The other aspect that struck me, and still today, but I have developed, a way of going around that, is, and I also have found what I'm going to say now, that it's not necessarily across the country here, because I have been blessed to
Mm-hmm.
visit,
Mm-hmm.
is the fact that people are very distant. Don't cross my space.
Mm.
You see, if I would have come, this interview would have taken place back home, I would have come into the room and say, "Hi, how are you?" and give you a kiss.
Right.
And "Hi, how are you?" and, hug you, whatever, like I
Right.
did with Anne
Uh,
when I arrived. But here it's like,
right.
don't
They have to know you better.
yes, yes. But the culture, is that, engaging, and is that warmth that is not here.
What are some of the positive things that you found in America, Boston, Newton?
Oh my God,
Everything.
everything.
Right. What strikes you as being a very positive experience? I know it was a difficult transition, but was
Yeah.
there anything in school at the time, coming to Newton, your neighbors, any of the
Absolutely,
people?
I have met, and we have met excellent friends here. When we moved to Newton, the back neighbors, they used to see us, from the window, and Mr. Siegel, Arnold Siegel, who used to live in the street over, he would say, "Who are these people that are, these young people that are in that?" So we became so good friends that they even visited, in Venezuela, and
Really?
and very good friends with my parents,
Mm-hmm.
and over the years, wonderful, experiences with them. So that was, meeting people here and finding that. I think for me, one of the blessings really was, going to my church that I belong to,
Yes,
Our
yes.
Lady Help of Christians, and the community that I developed there, with work. It was not easy. But, when I got there, I sang for 22 years in the choir.
Amazing.
And I left when my father had the stroke because I couldn't, manage
Mm-hmm.
the schedule with
Mm-hmm.
work, and doing that too. But when I joined the choir, for instance, the same thing, distance, the distance. And then I turned around that place, and everybody, was hugging and kissing, and, and
You changed the culture there.
yes. And I was the only Spanish speaking person in that church for years and years and
Wow.
years.
What about now?
Now it's a rainbow.
Uh-huh.
Now you see people coming, from India, and their, outfits, they come to church. Africans coming with their, national,
Yeah,
whatever
right.
outfit. And I take time when I'm there, to say how beautiful you look, how wonderful that you're
Right,
here.
right.
Very welcoming, because I think that that is very, very important.
And more Latinos?
Absolutely. The first time one of I have been
Mm.
very, absolutely very involved in my church, and the first time that I was able to serve communion with another Venezuelan.
Oh, that's special.
Oh, and I made a point of saying that, to people. I never in my wildest dreams I thought that I was able to be serving communion with another Venezuelan on the altar. Never. And now we have Venezuelans and Peruvians and you name it.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, now one of the priests that doesn't speak, Spanish, but he can read it. He's baptizing in Spanish, and these people from Waltham come, and they bring their kids because the pastor at the Waltham church doesn't want to do it, and they come to our church only for the baptism, but that's fine.
No, that's
That's
wonderful.
fine.
That's wonderful. What advice would you give someone moving here now from your country? I know it changed a lot in that time. But you've learned a lot in that time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have advice that you would give someone coming here?
Absolutely. You have to be aware that even though things have changed in the last 38 years and even before, that you're different here,
Mm.
and that you're going to encounter situations that are not pleasant, but that if you put the work, if you make it, happen, you will find people too that are welcoming and that are, supportive of that.
Mm-hmm.
That supportive of you, not that you, that people will see you. Newton has changed
Yes.
very much.
Yes.
I have had situations here in Newton when I came that were not really, happy ones. And at the very beginning, I was not able to um, speak up, or say something. Now that doesn't happen. you know, I, I think that I'm a nice person.
Yes.
But I don't let people walk over.
So is it because you've become more Americanized or older, or you just feel more comfortable, speaking up?
I think all of the above.
All of the above.
All of the above, yes.
All
I
right.
think now, at 63, I have learned, over the years to think that I'm not only doing it for me, but for the people that are coming,
Right.
behind me.
Right.
And I what I didn't feel then in terms of, proud,
Right.
of, what I bring to the table, I feel now. And, it's very emotional still. It's very hard because I see, I adore Newton. Absolutely. This is now in some ways, home.
Oh.
But you always have the dilemma, that I call the immigrant dilemma. Actually, I have to be fair. It's not my phrase. It's the phrase of a good friend of mine. That the immigrant dilemma is that you don't know where you belong after so many years.
Mm-hmm.
You're not from here, and you're not from there. You see what I mean?
I do.
And I see, my nephews, that were born here, but here in the schools, they have been bullied to the, to the wazoo, asking them, where's your father? Where does he cut the grass? My oldest nephew is extremely bright. He's a gifted child, but he's also in the Asperger's, spectrum.
Yes.
And so he's not, the middle of the road. He's different. So he has been bullied about that, and even though my brother and sister-in-law went to the school and talked about that, no reception whatsoever in trying to help about that.
And this is in public schools in
Yeah.
Newton? Oh,
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Meadowbrook,
Yeah. Even now.
Meadowbrook Middle School, and Newton South, and you name it. So it's and I mean now they're out, but they both graduated only 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But it's sad. It's very sad.
Yeah.
It's very sad.
As much as we've changed, we still have.
Absolutely.
We have a lot of work to do.
Absolutely. and look what happened this week at Fenway.
Oh,
Look at what happened this week at Fenway.
Right.
And it's, people talk too much.
Mm.
People talk too much. Oh, Boston is not this. Boston, this doesn't reflect Boston. No, it is Boston.
But you still felt that way.
Absolutely. Don't say that is not Boston. It is Boston, and the problem is that we collectively forget, from where we come from. This is not new. This is, go back to the Jews, when they were coming here and they were left, in a boat out of Cuba, to come to Florida, and they were told to go back to Europe.
Yes.
And they were exterminated.
Louis,
Absolutely. And go
Right.
back to the Irish and go back to the Italians, you know, and then we forget very easily, you know, who this land really belongs to, and why, you know, people forget that, you know, there was sort of a Holocaust too here when the Native Americans were exterminated, you know, and I feel offended but also extremely sad when I hear this president, you know, Trump, saying he adores Jackson. Give me a break. He was an exterminator too.
Yes, you know your history. So.
Well, I told you that I adore history.
So you mentioned being torn between where your home really is,
yes,
you know, which I totally understand. Are there certain things we do have in common here with beliefs and practices that you had at home in Venezuela? Did you find some common ground that made you feel more comfortable? What might that be?
I you know, Venezuela has changed a lot today.
Yes,
it's a disaster zone. I don't think that today there is a country in the world that is going through what we're going through, because not that I want to exaggerate it, but it's the truth. I mean, when you don't have food and you don't have medicines and you don't have, you know, the rule of law or anything, so I'm referring more to the principles and that kind of stuff, because the Venezuela that I left doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately. But yes, they're common ground in the sense of that Venezuela with the one now. It was the education, you know, value for education and value for principles in general of family, you know, and wanting, you know, the best for your family. That is common to everybody, no matter where you are, and that is valuable here. I think then the democratic system that I left, in some ways, a lot of, you know, mistakes and flaws or whatever, but you were able to leave, and here people, you know, have that too as a common, you know, but it's difficult to compare because, you know, the food is different.
Yes,
you know,
sure.
The educational system is different. Not that one is better than the other, but they're different.
Right, right. And did you find being a woman in Venezuela, getting the education, was different from what you encountered here?
Yes, too, because in Venezuela, women have, um, in some ways, it's a very good question, but a very complicated one to answer.
Sure.
In some ways, the women in Venezuela were more recognized, and the universities then even were crowded with women going. You know, my mother is going to be 88 years old in a few days, and she was the one of 5 women who got their doctorate in law. She has her doctorate in political science, and I'm talking 19. Let's see, 1950.
Wow.
See, so it has changed. It has changed. But on the other hand, here we don't have anything, and this is, I think, important. And I didn't know what sexual harassment was. We don't even have a word for that, because you go and you walk down the street in Venezuela, and they will whistle to you, and they will, you know, and it's not meant to be disrespectful. You know what I mean? But that's the kind of behavior that you're exposed to. That here, you know, will
it would mean
kill
something
you.
else.
I mean,
it would mean something else.
Something else, and people can lose their job or whatever. I learned about sexual harassment here. We don't have that there. You see what I mean?
Yes.
But it was different. The connotation, very different.
Different
very
context
different.
there.
Very, very much. And you have to see everything in its context to understand it.
Right, right. So you have some very good childhood memories from Venezuela. Is there anything particular you could share with us?
Oh, wow. Well,
something that still you think about or might affect your life.
Yes, well, I think about many
I'm
things.
sure. But
But
if there's anything that stands
yeah,
out,
there are two things that for me, are fun. Well, three things. One, that I always say, that I was raised in a swimming pool of love, because I was raised by my maternal grandparents at home, and my relationship with them, particularly with my grandmother, was very special. Very, very special. I felt that she was the one who installed, the seeds of what I am today. My mother was working; she had a big, big, big job, and my father was a physician. So, and my grandfather used to, well, was working too. So I was home with her, in the early years. So that, ambience, that it's part of who I am, you know. And there are two other things that, I remember distinctively the day my younger brother came home from the hospital when he was born. And that, we all were around that crib. It was like this, pour out of love, for that baby that came home, scared to death. A baby crying and crying and crying,
sure,
probably
sure.
scared to, I don't know if he was scared, but, baby just born. And that memory for me drove many, things after that, in caring for people. I think that that was like the beginning of why I even in the difficult times of my life, I reach out to people. I help people more than asking for help,
Right.
you know. And then there is another one that, I went to kindergarten, and there was another classmate of mine, and he was 5, and we were supposed to give, a gift or whatever. And I told my mother to buy him a train because he liked trains. And his name, this little fellow, was Eduardo. So when my younger brother was born, my parents asked me which name to give to the baby, and Eduardo is Eduardo because of that Eduardo. Well, this Eduardo from the train became, now he's the director of the Miami Philharmonic.
Really?
He's now there, and I watch him, I see him on TV, and I said to
Amazing.
him, if you were to know that my brother's name after him, and those kind of things. And then there are no coincidences in life. This Eduardo, never. I don't believe in that stuff. But this Eduardo in Miami and myself, we have a common friend. We ended up having common friends, but we don't know it. Well, I know him from when he was 5.
That's
So
amazing.
there are no coincidences.
That's
Yeah.
really amazing.
Amazing, yeah. But my brother is named after him.
And your brother lives here as
Yes,
well
yes,
in
yes, yes.
Newton?
Yes,
And
he lives in
stayed
in Oak Hill. So he's like a mile from my mother's home, and I felt, and I continue to feel, that it's a blessing because he married a Venezuelan too, and they had two
Nice.
boys, and I was blessed, really blessed, to be able to be part of their lives when they were growing up. So that for me has been amazing. Now I don't see them, and
Well, sure. They
yeah,
grow up
they
and
grow up, and it is what it is. But those years, until they went to college, I went to the presentations at school, the
yeah.
parents things. My parents, my sister-in-law was very open to invite me,
Oh,
and
wonderful.
so I was part of all of that. So for
That's
me, that was
wonderful.
very special.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful. So you still have close family nearby?
Well, them, that's all.
Yes.
I have another brother in Florida, and I don't see them that much because it's difficult, and
Sure.
and he has two, a boy and a girl, and I try to, reach out to them, but like, all of them, you text him a little face or have a good week or whatever, and you never hear from them. So
Sure. Greater distances than what you grew up with.
yes,
So it's a lot
absolutely.
different. So we've touched on a lot of things, and really you've shared amazing experiences since you've come here. Is there any question or anything else you would like to share and elaborate on that we didn't touch on from your experiences then, acclimating in America now?
Well, we have to have another interview. We have to have another interview because there are many things that I could think of. But I wish that more people will come to the forefront and talk about these issues and tell it the way it really is.
Yes.
I love politics and I watch CNN all the time, and I always say that you have to have the enemy close to you, know what he or she is doing. So I turn to Fox News to see what they're doing or what they're saying, and I say the enemy because I tend to be more into the social aspect of things.
Right.
And I love politics, but the politics that is going to serve people, that is going to open up opportunities, that is going to be welcoming, that is going to bring, development,
Yes.
that we
Progress.
have a vision.
Right. Some
Vision,
progress.
vision. And the people get to narrow-minded in the politics to be re-elected. And I am saying all that, and I wish I could say more, but I know we're short of time, that we need here in Newton to be more aware at the local level. We cannot change the whole world, but at Newton we can. And we need to name the elephant in the room. We need to say, as I wrote in the questions, it would be easier, I'm convinced of this, that we all have fears, we all have lack of information. And so I say, let's all say we're racist. That's being politically correct and humanly correct. And then because you are different, because I'm fearful of who you are, and let's have a conversation. I used to run workshops about, medical doctors, and here you are and the rest of the world is down here.
Right.
Let's bring it at this level and let's say to you, teach me, I don't know about your culture. And I would say, well, thank you, and you can ask me, teach me, but don't call me and tell me, how can we bring the Latinos that are hiding here, because I have received that call, that
Really?
are there to talk. Yes. How can I bring people from, off River Street in West Newton, where is my home, in West Newton now, where I have my house, and bring them to City Hall so that we can understand what they need? And I said, give me a break. Put your shoes and go to them. You don't want them to come to you. If you're really interested in knowing who they are and what their needs are, go to them. You see what I mean?
Definitely.
So go to their, don't tell me, what are the needs of, the elderly. I have, in my spare time, on quotes, go to make like sort of home visits from church to find out.
Right.
And the poverty that is here in Newton, the people that are in need here in Newton, they're here, but nobody sees them. And I have gone to homes where the faucet is leaking, the husband of the lady is like this, on his table, on his chair, like not being able to breathe or whatever. And I have called my pastor and I said, can you send Jerry, the person that manages the camp, to help Mrs. Such and Such with this faucet, because she doesn't have a penny and she needs this to be fixed. And I have called people here at City Hall and I said, could you please come and sit here and try to figure out what the deal is with the water, because this lady cannot continue to do what she's doing.
Right.
But it's very easy to say, and I will finish. I can continue on.
No, there's a lot that you've shared, and you've actually come here instead of our going to you. So we really thank you for doing that.
That's fine. But I will end by saying, reach out and touch someone. That was a commercial.
Yes.
When I came,
remember that
was, reach out and go there. It's very easy to sit behind your desk here and say, we need to work more. And when a problem is, let's have a gathering outside, by the flag, and we are going to all pray for the people who were killed or whatever. put your shoes or whatever you walk on and go to the people.
Right.
Don't stay behind the desk, because
Right.
that's not going to solve the problem.
Right.
And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for
No,
this
we
opportunity.
thank you for sharing all this with us. It really means a lot.
I hope that
It
it's
does,
helpful.
and now it's going to be here for posterity, and students will be able to see it. And as part of this Newton Talks, this oral project, thank you for volunteering to do it. Really a pleasure meeting you.
I even said to my brother to do it because he has a lot of.
So maybe get him to come
Well,
in.
he's so busy right now with
Yeah,
work, and that
sure.
he would only be able to do it on the weekends, and I know he's also like a history, like an ambulatory encyclopedia,
History, right.
and he would have information too.
All right.
But
all right.
I don't think.
But thank you.
Thank
this
you.
Is really
Thank
amazing.
you very much.
Thank
Gracias.
you so much.